Be honest with yourself. Are you working for your life or working to feed the things that are quietly taking away your freedom? A beautiful house, a new car, a luxurious wardrobe, all of them can make you look rich. But only a steady cash flow can make you live rich. Some people own many things, yet live each day under the pressure of bills, expenses, and responsibilities. While others, without having too much in their hands, move through life lightly and peacefully. They're not running faster than you. They're not luckier than you. They just prioritize one thing most of us forget: cash flow. I once walked in that same mistake. I worked hard, but I always felt like I was running inside a wheel with no way out. I owned more and more over time. Yet strangely, freedom drifted further away. And then I discovered something that later became the most important foundation for my transformation. Assets can make you proud, but cash flow is what makes you free. Like a seed buried deep beneath the dark soil. It makes no noise. It receives no applause. But each day, it accumulates a quiet internal stream until one day, strong enough, it breaks through and rises. Your life is the same. Freedom doesn't come from things others can see. It comes from the cash flow you build in silence. In today's video, I'll share with you the principles that help you understand and, more importantly, prioritize cash flow so you can step out of financial pressure and move closer to the freedom you deserve. Because I once asked myself, why am I doing everything right, yet still not free? And the answer is exactly what I'm about to share with you now. Principle 1, cash flow matters more than assets. Most people grow up with a seemingly harmless belief: as long as you own many assets, life will become freer. But once they step into the real world, they discover a harsh truth. Assets do not automatically bring freedom, and in many cases, those very assets become burdens that hold them back. I once met a man in California many years ago, at a time when I was still fumbling through my understanding of finance and personal freedom. He had a large home, a luxury car, and several investments that anyone would assume meant he was doing well. But when I asked about his financial plan, he sighed and said, "Jim, I'm rich on paper, but poor in my pocket." That sentence stayed with me for decades. It helped me realize something that I've repeated countless times in my talks. Assets are what you own. Cash flow is what keeps you alive. You can own a $500,000 house, but if every month you have to pay interest, taxes, maintenance, utilities, and everything flows out while nothing flows in, that house doesn't give you freedom. It just traps you in an endless race to maintain it. I once asked an audience during a training session, if one day you lost your job, which of the assets you own could keep you alive for another 6 months? The room went silent because they understood almost none of those things provided real cash flow. One of our biggest mistakes is measuring wealth by what stands still instead of what flows. The house stands still. The car stands still. The shopping items stand still. But cash flow moves. And where there is flow, there is life. Imagine a river. It doesn't have to be large at the start. As long as it keeps flowing, it paves paths, nourishes, and creates abundance. But a stagnant lake, no matter how wide, eventually dries and decays. Likewise, many people live as if they own a huge lake full of assets but have no fresh water flowing in. Then they wonder why they feel exhausted, anxious, and heavy. It's simple. Without cash flow, life cannot sustain freedom. I remember the first time my mentor told me, "Jim, don't count what you own, count what flows into your pocket every month." That line changed the way I saw the world. I began evaluating everything with one single question. Does it generate cash flow? From that point on, I understood that freedom doesn't come from the number of assets you accumulate, but from the frequency and strength of the flow you build. Someone with 2 cash-flowing assets can be far freer than someone with 10 dead assets. And I want you to reflect on this. Life doesn't reward you for what you own. Life rewards you for the cash flow you create. I made that mistake too. I chased ownership instead of flow, and I paid for it with years of pressure. But when I started prioritizing cash flow, everything changed. I worked less and lived more. And that's just the beginning. Because to truly be free, you must clearly distinguish between assets that sustain your life and assets that steal your freedom. Principle 2, distinguish real assets and draining assets. One of the most pivotal turning points in my financial journey was when I understood the difference between assets and draining assets. It sounds simple, yet this confusion has caused millions of people to work their entire lives without ever finding freedom. And if you don't grasp this, you may be holding things that look valuable, but silently drain your cash flow every single day. Many years ago, I met a friend in Arizona. He had 3 houses. Just hearing that sounds wealthy, doesn't it? He drove a new car and often told people he was stable. But one evening, sitting with me at an old wooden table, he said tiredly, "Jim, I'm drowning in my own assets." I asked why, and he explained. One house was vacant. The other 2 had just undergone repairs. Taxes, maintenance, bank interest, month after month. His cash flow was being drained mercilessly. 3 houses, but not a single dollar of cash flow. And for the first time, I saw more clearly than ever, not every asset frees you. Some assets simply make you a debt manager. A real asset puts money into your pocket. A draining asset takes money out of it. The difference is in the flow, not the appearance. Many people buy houses not because they need them, but because they want to prove something. They think owning a large house is a symbol of success. But when maintenance costs, interest, and taxes weigh them down, they realize they didn't buy a home, they bought responsibility. And that responsibility is paid for with their financial freedom. I once said in a seminar, if what you own doesn't pay you, you might be the one paying to keep it. The entire room laughed, but it was the bitter laughter of understanding. Take an honest look at your own life. Does the new car make you freer or just increase your monthly expenses? Does the bigger house make your life lighter or force you to work harder to maintain it? Do those expensive purchases create value or just weaken your cash flow? Many people confuse asset value with life value. Assets can appreciate, but your quality of life can decline if cash flow is unstable. I've met entrepreneurs who had little to show off, yet their cash flow was so stable they could stop working anytime. Conversely, I've seen people with expensive watches who worried every month because their assets were nothing more than still water lakes. Remember this, you don't need to own many things. You just need to own the right things. I misjudged this too. I once believed ownership was a form of power, but the older I got, the more I realized real power comes from your ability to control your flow, not the number of things that stand still. Imagine standing before 2 gardens. One is stunning but has a broken irrigation system. The other is simple but has a steady stream of water every day. A year later, you'll know which garden thrives and which one withers. Our lives operate exactly the same way. And once you understand the difference between real assets and draining assets, you'll be ready for an even more important question. Are you looking rich or living rich? Principle 3, look rich or live rich. Throughout many years of teaching, I've noticed a paradox that almost everyone falls into. People try to look rich before they learn how to live rich. And that confusion makes them trade their entire life to buy things that serve other people's eyes, not their own freedom. I remember meeting a young man after a seminar in Texas in the late 990 seconds. He was driving a brand new car, wearing a shiny watch, and the suit on him was probably worth a few $1,000s. He walked up, shook my hand, smiled confidently, and said, "Jim, I'm on my way to becoming wealthy." I looked at him and nodded. But as we talked more deeply, he confessed that the car was financed, the watch was bought on a credit card, and the suit was a reward for hitting last month's sales target, a reward that forced him to work even harder to pay off the debt. As he walked away, I had only one thought. He wasn't living rich. He was just trying to look rich. Looking rich is when you own things that make others think you're successful. Living rich is when you have the freedom to choose how you live without being crushed by bills and financial responsibilities. A person who looks rich runs very fast, but runs on a treadmill. A person who lives rich walks slowly, but every step takes them forward. I've seen people who have it all, big houses, luxury cars, trendy wardrobes. But I've also seen them stressed, anxious, and constantly afraid of losing control. Not because they lack assets, but because those assets don't create cash flow for them. Instead, they devour it day by day. On the other hand, I once met an older man in Idaho, someone anyone would think was just an ordinary person at first glance. He wore simple shirts and drove a car that was over 10 years old. But he owned 3 rental properties, a portfolio of dividend-paying stocks, and a small shop that ran steadily. He told me, "Jim, I don't look rich, but I live rich." And that's a sentence I've never forgotten. Take a close look at your life. Did you buy that thing because you need it or because you want others to see that you have it? Are you working more just to feed your lifestyle, or is your lifestyle designed to set you free? Do you truly have the freedom to choose, or are you simply running every month to keep up with mandatory payments? Looking rich is a race with no finish line. Living rich is a journey with a clear destination, freedom. I also fell into the look rich trap. I used to think success had to be visible. But the more I grew, the more I realized true success doesn't need noise. It's gentle, it's deep, and it shows up as peace in your mind, not in the things you wear on your body. Imagine two lamps. One burns bright, attracting every gaze, but only lasts a few hours. The other is smaller, quieter, but thanks to a steady flow of oil, it burns through many long nights. Which lamp do you want to be? But to truly live rich, without showing off, without needing to prove anything, you must understand what I'm about to share next. Principle 4, the river of freedom. When cash flow is water, dead assets are the rocks blocking the stream. There is a metaphor I've always loved when talking about financial freedom, the river. Because no matter where you live, what you do, or where you start, the principle of the river is always true. When water flows, the river lives. When water is blocked, the river dies. The cash flow in your life is the same. I remember once passing by a small river in Oregon in the late 1000, 970 seconds. It had just rained, and the water was rushing, powerful, carrying new energy. A farmer standing next to me said, "When the water runs strong, you can see the fields down there turn green." That sentence stuck with me. A strong enough stream can create abundance for an entire stretch of land. But a weak stream, or a blocked one, causes everything around it to wither. And then I realized, each person's life is a river. Cash flow is the water. Dead assets are the rocks that block the stream. Many people have a lot of rocks. A house that always needs repairs. A new car that needs monthly payments. Fixed expenses that are larger than their cash flow. Purchases that never create any real value. All of it looks beautiful until you realize those things just sit there and don't bring any flow. The more rocks a river has, the harder it is for water to move. And the harder it is for water to move, the poorer the life around it becomes. I once met a family in California, a couple with good jobs and steady income. They owned many things others dream of, but every month they were tense, worried, feeling like they were standing in the middle of a river that was slowly drying up. They asked me, "What did we do wrong?" I answered by telling them the story of the river. And I asked them, "Are you adding more water to your river or adding more rocks to its bed?" They fell silent. Many assets don't feed you, you have to feed them. That's why true wealth doesn't come from what you own, but from how your cash flow moves. Imagine two rivers, one large river full of rocks and weeds, where the water flows slowly and stagnates. One smaller river, clear and unobstructed, where the water flows steadily, strongly, and naturally. If you were a seed, where would you want to be planted? Your life is like a seed. Freedom is the field you want to see lush and green. But for that field to thrive, you must care for the water, the cash flow. I once thought having lots of assets was enough. But the more places I went, the more people I met, the more I understood. It's not assets that determine your freedom. It's your ability to let cash flow through your life without being blocked. When I stopped piling up rocks and started freeing the water, everything changed. I felt less pressure, more lightness, and more freedom. Look at your life as if you're looking at a river. Is the water flowing or standing still? What rocks are blocking the stream? Are you feeding the river or draining it day by day? And when you realize that cash flow must run freely like a river, you'll be ready for the next principle, a powerful story of transformation. Because there are people who changed nothing but the way they treated their cash flow, and their entire life changed direction. Principle 5. A story of transformation, retiring 5 years early by prioritizing cash flow. Many years ago, I met a young couple in Colorado. He was a technician in a mechanical workshop and she was a teacher. Their income was not high, but stable, and both were hardworking, kind, and responsible. Yet their life was always tight as a stretched string. Every month felt like a battle. They worked hard, but there was barely anything left at the end of the month. One autumn evening, after my talk, they came up to me and said, "Jim, we don't understand why we're doing everything we're supposed to do, but still not moving forward. We have a house, a car, some savings, but each passing year, we just feel more tired." I asked them a simple question. Do the things you own feed you, or are you the ones feeding them? They looked at each other, and in their eyes, I saw a truth they had never dared to say out loud. Everything they owned was responsibility, not freedom. We sat down, and I drew a very small model for them with just 2 lines. Cash flowing in, cash flowing out. Then I said, if the inflow is not stronger than the outflow, you will burn out. If the inflow is steady and growing stronger, you will be free. That very night, they made a decision they later called the biggest turning point of our lives. They would stop chasing assets and start building cash flow. And their journey started with very small steps. They rented out the room in their basement. They sold their second car and switched to sharing one. They set aside a small amount each month to invest in dividends from a few stable companies. They bought an old laundromat from someone about to retire, a simple business that didn't require them to be there every day, but steadily generated cash flow. Bit by bit, the water started to flow. In the first 2 years, they didn't become rich, but they became lighter, less worried. They had more time together instead of just running around to keep up with payments. By the 3rd year, they had paid off all their consumer debt. By the 4th year, the cash flow from the laundromat and dividends began to exceed their basic expenses. And by the 5th year, something even they hadn't expected, both of them quit their jobs. Not because they were burned out, not because they were bored, but because they no longer had to work to live. Cash flow was doing that for them. When they met me again, they said something I'll never forget. Jim, we didn't become richer than everyone else. We just redirected our river. And that is the essence of transformation. Freedom doesn't come from doing more. It comes from letting cash flow work for you. I've seen many lives transformed by just one simple awakening. The problem wasn't that they didn't have enough money. The problem was that their money wasn't flowing in the right direction. When you change the direction of the flow, you change the direction of your life. Imagine your river is drying up. You don't need a massive storm to save it. You just need to open a few small streams, steady and consistent. And then one day you look around and realize the whole field has turned green and you didn't even notice when it happened. And if this story awakens something in you, then the next principle will help you a great deal. Principle 6, 4 types of assets that create sustainable cash flow. Once you understand the power of cash flow and see how it can change the life of an ordinary family, the next question is always, so what kinds of assets actually create flow? Because not everything has the ability to put money into your pocket. And not every asset that looks good will help you live free. Throughout my career, I've met thousands of people from office workers, farmers, teachers to business owners, and I've found that there are 4 sustainable types of assets that outlast market ups and downs and have helped countless people build financial freedom long before they grow old. Let's walk through each type in the simplest, most understandable and practical way. 1. Rental real estate. Cash flow that is steady and stable over time. I once said, land doesn't sleep. And if you know how to use it the right way, it will work even while you're sleeping. A rental house, a small apartment, or even a room in your own home, all of these can create cash flow. But the most important thing is this. It must be operated as an income-producing asset, not as a piece of jewelry. I once met a man in Nevada who owned 2 small houses next to a factory. He said, Jim, I've never been rich, but I've never had to worry about rent money each month. He didn't say that to brag. That was peace of mind, an invisible profit that only cash flow can bring. Rental real estate is the kind of asset that works quietly but persistently. It doesn't skyrocket, but it doesn't disappear overnight either. 2. Dividends from stable companies, money flowing in without you doing more. I've always liked dividends for a simple reason. You own a piece of a business, and the business pays you because you trusted them. Many people hear investing and immediately think of risk, volatility, prices going up and down. But dividends from large, long-standing, stable businesses are not that noisy. They're like a small but steady stream flowing in. I remember an older gentleman who once shared with me, Jim, every quarter I get a few $100s in dividends. It's not much, but it's the best feeling because I know I don't have to do anything to get it. And I understood exactly what he meant. Dividends are not just money. They are proof that your money is working for you. 3, intellectual products, books, lectures, training programs. Many years before the internet exploded, people who created intellectual products, authors, speakers, trainers, already knew how to turn knowledge into cash flow. I used to write small books, record lectures, and produce training programs on cassette tapes. Every time a copy was sold, I received a small amount. And that small amount, over time, turned into a stream of income I never expected. The most wonderful thing about this type of asset is, you do the work once, but you get paid many times. A teacher I knew in Kansas wrote a study guide. It sold slowly, but steadily. And years later, that very cash flow helped her raise 2 children through some very difficult periods. 4. Self-running businesses, assets that can support you long-term. Many people think a business has to be big and complicated. But no, a laundromat, a small shop, a repair garage, a simple service business, all of these can become sustainable cash flow as long as they don't require you to be there 12 hours a day. I once saw a mechanic buy a small, well-running repair shop. He hired a manager, kept the existing team, and used his time to grow the customer base. After a few years, the cash flow from that shop allowed him to quit his old job and spend more time with his family. A self-running business doesn't need to be huge. It just needs to be stable, real, and not overly dependent on you. Looking back on my life, I realized that every asset that helped me gain freedom fell into these 4 categories. Not flashy, not trendy, but persistent, stable, and stronger over time. Freedom doesn't come from big assets. Freedom comes from assets that flow. And once you know the 4 types of assets that can support you, you'll be ready to move on to the next principle, a model that helps you clearly understand the path from small cash flow to big freedom. Principle 7, the 5-level cash flow model, the path from $0 to freedom. When I talk about cash flow, many people come up and ask me, Jim, I'm so far from freedom, where do I even start? And I usually show them a simple model I call the 5 levels of cash flow. A map that helps you know exactly where you are and what your next step should be. You don't need luck. You don't need to start out wealthy. You just need to understand how cash flows and be persistent enough to climb each level. Level 1, from $0 to your first cash flow. This is where most people begin. No cash flow, or cash in and cash out, are equal. But the most important thing is not how much you create, it's that you create the first flow. I once told a young man, your first cash flow might be just $20 or $50, but what matters is that it exists. It might come from renting out a room in your house or from a small side job, but its meaning is bigger than the number. For the first time in your life, money flows in without you working extra hours. That's the moment your river comes to life. Level 2, cash flow of $100 to $300 a month, enough to create psychological momentum. When your cash flow reaches a few $100s a month, your feelings change. You start to worry less. You gain a mental cushion. Imagine you're rowing a boat. When the water is still, you have to use a lot of effort. But when the water starts flowing, even a light stroke moves the boat forward. At level 2, you're not free yet, but you don't feel stuck anymore. Level 3, cash flow of $500 to $1,000 a month, the real breakthrough point. This is the stage where cash flow starts to create practical impact. It can cover your electricity bill, your car insurance, or part of your rent. I once met a woman in California who used this exact level of cash flow to do something she had never dared to do before, take a month off work to care for her child. She told me, Jim, I'm no longer running out of fear. For the first time, I chose how I want to live. This is the psychological power that cash flow brings. The power to choose. Level 4, cash flow of $2,000 to $3,000 a month, partial freedom. At this level, your cash flow can cover most or even all of your basic living expenses. You may still choose to work, but you're no longer forced to work just to survive. This is the first time many people truly feel freedom. They can say no to work they don't like. They can take longer breaks. They can spend time with family, learning, and personal growth. They can start building larger assets without pressure. You may not be rich by society's standards, but you're freer than 90% of the population. Level 5, cash flow of $5,000 to $10,000 a month, true freedom. This is the stage where cash flow not only covers your living expenses, but also creates constant surplus. You no longer worry about tomorrow. You don't have to chase deadlines. You don't have to chase revenue. And most importantly, you start working for meaning, not for money. I've said, when you no longer have to work to live, you begin to live the way you want. That is the doorway to true freedom. When I look back at my own journey, I realize I also started at level 1 like everyone else. Nothing big. No magical leap. Just small flows, steady and consistent, that over time became a powerful river. Freedom doesn't come from luck. Freedom comes from the flow you build over many years. And now that you understand the 5-level cash flow map, you can clearly see the reason for the final principle. A simple reminder, but powerful enough to transform your entire financial journey. Principle 8, the golden reminder. No cash flow, no freedom. There is a sentence I repeat in every one of my talks, whether I'm standing in front of a group of a few dozen people or a hall of thousands. No cash flow, no freedom. It's simple, but its power is enough to change your entire life if you truly understand it. Many people believe freedom comes when they earn a lot of money. But earning money is only half the story. Because if the money you earn doesn't flow towards you, but instead flows away into bills, debts, responsibilities, and draining assets, then you still live under pressure, no matter how high your income is. I've met people with very high salaries, thousands of dollars a month, yet they live with constant worry. They are like a river in dry season, wide, beautiful on the outside, but with a weak inner flow. They don't lack money, they lack cash flow. Freedom does not come from the number in your bank account. Freedom comes from the steady stream, the money you don't have to trade labor, time, or peace of mind to receive. I remember an older businessman who taught me an invaluable lesson. Jim, every person has 2 choices. Either let your job feed you or let your cash flow feed you. That sentence stopped me in my tracks. For many years, I had let my job feed me. I worked hard. I chased opportunities. I pushed for breakthroughs, but I didn't have any cash flow of my own. And that made me tired, not wealthy. One day I asked him, "How do you know when you're truly free?" He smiled. "When I wake up in the morning and know that money will flow in today whether I work or not." And that is the nature of freedom. It's not about how much you have, but how long you can live if you stop working tomorrow. Ask yourself this. If I stopped working today, how long could my current cash flow support me? A month? A year? Or not even a day? The answer will tell you exactly where you stand in your freedom journey. Many people misunderstand freedom because they only look at income. But income is something you must trade for. Cash flow is something that trades for you. Income stops when you stop working. Cash flow continues even when you stop. A person with $3,000 income per month but $0 cash flow is not free. Another person with $1,000 of consistent monthly cash flow may live far more lightly. I once asked a group of students, "Do you want to be rich right now or free forever?" The room fell silent because they realized being rich is a moment. But freedom is a lifelong state. When I stopped counting assets and started counting cash flow, everything changed. I gained control of my time. I worried less. I thought clearer, lived slower, and loved deeper. It didn't happen overnight, but it came from one simple awakening. Freedom needs flow, not a list of assets. Imagine you're watering a garden. You can carry buckets of water, exhausting, heavy, paid for with effort. That is income. Or you can dig a small underground channel that feeds the garden every day. That is cash flow. One person works their whole life to carry water. Another spends a few years opening a water line, and that water line feeds the garden for the rest of their life. And now, having gone through all the principles, understanding assets, the river, the flow, and the 5-level map of freedom, it's time to wrap up this journey. Because today's video isn't just about financial lessons, it's a reminder to live differently starting tomorrow. When you look back at the entire journey today, from the truth about assets, to the power of cash flow, from the river of freedom to the transformation story, from the 4 sustainable asset types to the 5-level cash flow map, one thing becomes clearer than ever. Freedom isn't a distant destination. Freedom begins with the small streams you build today. You don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to move fast. You just have to start making money flow toward you instead of only away from you. I've met many people who spend their entire lives proving they are wealthy. But I've also met people who live simply, quietly, and yet possess a level of freedom no price can buy. The difference isn't in the assets they own, it's in the cash flow that feeds them every day. And now, the only question left is, will you keep carrying buckets? Or will you begin opening your own stream? Because once cash flow begins to work, you will feel something very special. Life becomes lighter. Your mind becomes clearer. and the future starts to open in ways you've never seen. If you felt anything in this video, an awakening, a gentle nudge, or a decision to change, let me know by clicking like, subscribe, and sharing the video with someone who needs the same reminder today. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Which of the 8 principles today made you think the most? Leave a comment below. I read everyone. Before you go, I want to leave you with a sentence I always carry with me. Success is not a destination. It is the journey you stay committed to every day. Thank you for staying until the end of the video. I truly appreciate it. See you in the next lessons at Jim Rohn Treasures, where small streams lead you to great freedom.